text messages between Mark Meadows and at least 3 different Fox News personalities have been revealed by the committee to investigate what happened on January 6th. The texts were exchanged between Mark Meadows, Laura Ingraham, as well as her colleagues Sean Hannity and Brian Kilmeade, and were all urging him to plead with Trump to order his people to go home. So I'm going to show you a video here. This is Representative Liz Cheney. She is a Republican, and she is part of the January 6th committee, and she's going to read off some of these texts from these Fox News personalities.
According to the records, multiple Fox News hosts knew the president needed to act immediately. They texted Mr. Meadows, and he has turned over those texts. Quote, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy, Laura Ingraham wrote. Please get him on TV. Destroying everything you have accomplished, Brian Kilmeade texted. Quote, can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol, Sean Hannity urged.
All right, so a couple things about these texts. Number one, I mean, they saw what was happening at the Capitol and were obviously horrified, like the rest of us. Now, the difference is, of course, we are horrified that there was violence and that there was an attempt to overthrow the election or overturn the election. They saw this and was horrified, like, oh no, that's going to make us look bad. So that's the difference. They knew it wasn't peaceful. They knew exactly what was going on. They knew. And all they were doing is basically saying, okay, Mark, you got to talk to Donald Trump. You're his chief of staff. Tell him to do something, or else they're going to ruin it for the rest of us. They're going to ruin it for the rest of us. So, look, secondly, by the way, and this is what's more important here. Secondly, knowing all of this, these 3 took to their respective platforms, their shows, to then lie about what happened on January 6th to try to downplay it. In fact, Laura Ingraham, on the night that it happened, this was her reporting.
The Capitol was under siege by people who can only be described as antithetical to the MAGA movement. Now, there were likely not all Trump supporters, and there are some reports that Antifa sympathizers may have been sprinkled throughout the crowd. We'll have more on that later. But the point remains. If you were a Trump supporter hoping to display your support for the president, well, today's antics at the Capitol did just the opposite. There are legitimate concerns about how these elections were conducted and in the middle of a pandemic with all the new restrictions, but that never should have lent any license to violence or other chaos. We need meaningful reform. But political passions boiled over today, and it will only serve to make the lives of MAGA supporters more difficult and even imperil this movement they fought so hard for.
Interesting. And it makes you look really bad for all the stuff we fought for. Like what? Oh, tax cuts for the rich, because that's really the only major accomplishment from the Trump administration, other than massive deregulation of industry. Regulation that, in some cases, Joe Biden has not restored the tax code, hasn't hasn't raised taxes on the rich and corporations, like he said he was going to do so. And so, oh, look, but hey, January 6th, we can't let them undo the things that we have done. We can't make the MAGA movement look bad. Oh, no, of course not. That's my main concern if I'm Laura Ingraham or if I'm any of these people on Fox News. We just can't make what we're doing look bad. And you're making me look bad. The secret Antifa. That's what it was. Yes, Antifa sympathizers. They were there with the Antifa. But no, there was no Antifa. And by the way, there was no legitimate questions on the election. There was no mass voter fraud. Period. Full stop. And again, of course, doesn't matter. Facts don't matter to them. In fact, she then later on in the program, talking about the secret Antifa. I have never seen Trump rally attendees wearing helmets, black helmets, brown helmets, black backpacks, the uniforms you saw in some of these crowd shots. Now, the FBI did not find any evidence of Antifa involvement. Believe me, they would want to. Understand that the FBI is not a left-friendly organization. They are literally right-wing law enforcement officials. Not exactly bedfellows of Antifa, okay? Actually, kind of the opposite of Antifa. In fact, they're certainly not at all in favor of vigilantism. If they had indeed found any evidence that there was anyone involved with Antifa in January 6th, they would have immediately gone after that. That would have been the first people that they had prosecuted. And of course, Fox News would be like, Antifa, 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 all the time, the whole time. Now, they're still, of course, they still did that. Obviously, I just showed you the video. But they didn't have any evidence to back that up. Now, Ingraham isn't the only one to have made a public versus private statement that happened to not line up. In fact, Brian Kilmeade said in a different appearance on Fox News, I do not know Trump supporters that have ever demonstrated violence that I know of in a big situation. Well, there it is. There it is. Right there. There's your proof. There's your evidence. Yes, it happens. They do demonstrate violence. All right. There's more. Sean Hannity. Here's what he said. I don't ever want to see our Capitol building breached like this ever again. And of the January 6th participants, he said that the majority of them were peaceful. Ah, yes, the notoriously peaceful Capitol rioters that smashed windows, beat police officers, your shit, literal shit, all over the walls and the floors of the Capitol building, the laptops, like, oh no, we got to get the Nancy Pelosi's laptop so we can steal it and we can find out the secrets of the deep state. By the way, the narrative that they have created for not only downplaying this, oh, they're peaceful, whatever. Now, on Monday, Hannity had equated the January 6th riot with protests that followed the murder of George Floyd, because that's immediately what they do. So somebody's like, hey, January 6th, there's actual riots, there was violence. Oh yeah? Well, look at the riots that happened in George Floyd. They burnt down Minneapolis. No city's burnt down. I think they burnt down like an Arby's. Hey, that sucks for the Arby's, right? When you do comparison here, you had millions of protesters out protesting unarmed against police shooting and killing unarmed black people. That's the situation. That's the reality, right? Millions, 96% of those protests were peaceful. And look, you can also say that there were some infiltrators, people who were part of white nationalist groups going in there, causing trouble, stirring things up. You also had police overpresence and overreaction. Sometimes they would start violence with the peaceful protesters, which would turn into a riot. And then, of course, there were just also these riots, people taking advantage of the situation, being opportunists to go and loot a store. That did happen as well. And there ended up being billions of dollars worth of damage. Okay, that's different because it's so how widespread that was. For this rally, the Trump rally, there were thousands of people that were dead set and had planned on it because riots tend to be more of spontaneous nature. Whereas this was pre-planned and the violence was pre-planned. They were going to walk in, they were going to try to disrupt the certification of an election to try to keep the previous president in power, even though there's no constitutional vehicle to allow that to happen. And so, again, here's what he said, though. I would like an answer to why we had 500 riots in the summer of 2020. Dozens of Americans dead, thousands of cops injured, billions of dollars in property damage, arson and looting. Where's that committee, Congressman? I'd like to see that committee. For one, again, They didn't try to overthrow the government, you jackass. And secondly, there didn't need to be a committee on that because it didn't involve people in power, including the President of the United States. Not only that, but those who were involved in the rioting were also, I don't know, arrested. They were arrested and charged. The January 6th riot is trying to, the commission, is trying to figure out who in power encouraged and had even been involved in the planning of January 6th. This is completely different. You are comparing apples and goddamn bananas. There is no comparison here. There is no comparison here. All right? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Now, the worst of them, of course, is Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, oh. Now, back in September, he told his audience that the Capitol rioters, quote unquote, they don't look like terrorists. They look like tourists. They were just tourists, guys. They don't look like terrorists. Well, you know what? White people to Tucker Carlson will never look like terrorists. You know who looks like a terrorist to Tucker Carlson? Muslims. Brown people. That's who. That's who. So a white person could be a literal terrorist. Tucker Carlson will look at them and say, no, he doesn't look like a terrorist. He looks like a tourist. That's it. He's a tourist. Now, he also produced this documentary, so-called documentary, that has all sorts of conspiracy theories about how, oh, no, it's the deep state, the FBI, they had planned January 6th to pin it on Trump supporters to make Trump supporters look bad. But why? That's the thing that it always comes back to. Again, you would have to believe some pretty crazy things about the FBI and CIA, especially the fact that they would be in favor of someone like Joe Biden, who they claim is a communist socialist. Now, if you know anything about the FBI, CIA, or any of our intelligence apparatus, you would know that they are massively anti-communist. They're massively anti-left. And yes, it is more likely for something like that to actually happen on the left. For example, infiltrating pipeline protesters. That far more likely than infiltrating right-wing groups who hate the government. Again, doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. So, no. And there's more. By the way, on that documentary, 2 Fox contributors, Jonah Goldberg and Stephen Hayes, said, all right, look, I'm going to resign from the network. This is too much. This is too much for us. All right? No. We've had it. We were cool with the propaganda up till here, but no more. No longer. All right? In fact, they called it this documentary. And I really struggle using that term for this, but they said it was a collection of incoherent conspiracy mongering, riddled with factual inaccuracies, half-truths, deceptive imagery, and damning omissions. Well, there you go. So now, again, even after we have the facts that have come out, and we have guilty pleas and sentences for many people that have been involved in the Capitol riots, you have Fox News that continues to this day to try to downplay or ignore the riots entirely. In fact, this hearing, guess what? This hearing is being completely ignored on Fox News. Mark Meadows goes on Fox News, was not asked about the texts, wasn't asked about anything other than, oh, you've been found in contempt. What do you think about that? It is a way to bring down Donald Trump. From what? Bring him down from what? He's not in power anymore. Unhinged. Unhinged. And again, why is this not being played on Fox News? Because they don't want the audience to see the messages they sent to Mark Meadows. That's why. Because then, if that happens, the truth might come out. Oh, and we can't let that happen. Why? Because, mainly they're concerned with money. That's it. They're going to lose viewers. They won't get good ratings because they'll be exposed to the very lying media that they accuse everyone else of being. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.